Yeah, well,
Here we go.
we're definitely looking forward to it. Hello, JP.
Morning, sir, and that'll be an expensive cup of coffee. You know that, don't you?
I know we'll be there a while. We never have a shortage of things to talk about.
Chair Pryor, we are ready to begin when you are.
Great. So we are beginning the regular meeting of the Board of Retirement for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. And our first order of business is to call the order and roll call participants. So it makes it easy if Bonnie can see you. So please show yourselves if possible.
Thank you. This meeting is being held virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox is not joining us today. Ms. Ginsburg?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Gray?
Good morning.
Mr. Santos?
All present and accounted for.
Mr. Sanchez?
Hi, good morning.
Mr. Moore?
I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe?
I am present.
Mr. Robbins?
I'm present.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Ms. Zapanta? Mr. Bernstein?
I'm here.
Chair Pryor?
I am here. Just as a little note, I am on duty. We're very short people today, so I got called in. If you hear this thing going off, it'll be a very loud whining sound, a very loud screech. That means I probably have to leave, and hopefully Assistant Vice Chair Kehoe is in a good place to be able to take over the meeting if that happens.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and announce the staff participating in today's meeting, and that includes CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, Assistant Executive Officers JJ Popovich and Laura Guglielmo, CIO John Grable, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Senior Staff Counsels Frank Boyd, Mike Herrera, and Fern Billingy. Disability litigation staff include Vincent Lim, Allison Barrett, Jason Waller, and Eugenia Durr. Staff and managers participating today include Carly Matoya, Bob Schlofelt, Kathy Delino, Ted Granger, Barry Liu, Cassandra Smith, Ricky Contreras, Tamara Caldwell, Vicki Neely, Carrie Wilson, Hernan Barrientos, Ricardo Salinas, and Carlos Barrios. Fiduciary Council, Noemi Ferguson will be participating today, as well as Stephen Murphy and Richard War from Siegel. And LACERA's medical advisor, Dr. Glenn Erisman, will also be participating today. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you are ready to speak, and we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you for that, Bonnie. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. And we are approving minutes for February 2nd, 2022. I do need a motion.
I'll move approval.
Motion Harris.
Second.
Second Santos, and please call the roll.
Wait, Ms. Ginsburg?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
I'm voting.
Bonnie, I'm an aye on that.
Oh, yes, I marked you. Sorry about that.
You anticipated correctly.
I sure did.
And I think I am not up to vote on that. Is
Correct.
Ms. Gray, Santos. Okay. So that brings us to public comment. We do have one written submission that was made. It is on your email. That is going to be written only. Hopefully everybody's read that. That is regarding a application for NSCD being seen later in the meeting. That brings us to other communications and January 22 All-Stars. Mr. Popovich, Mr. Kryman, who's handling it?
And good morning to the trustees. This is the time of the month when we recognize our All-Stars, those that have gone above and beyond the call of duty, help their fellow staff members and our members. And so you'll see them on the screen. We have Fong Reyes, Eddie Paz, Rosetta Chang, Karina Diaz, and our web watcher is Randy Enriquez. So thank you very much for all you do and for all the other All-Stars and for all of our staff members. I appreciate you.
And that brings us to the CEO's report, Mr. Kryman.
Yes, good morning, Chair Pryor, trustees. Just a brief report. I provided you with a written report. I just wanted to update you on a couple of items. We've completed our negotiations with the strategic planning consultant, and we're in the process of executing the agreement. More than likely, we'll have it completed by early part of next week. Once we solidify the statement of work, going to be reaching out to Chair Pryor to talk to him about how we're going to integrate the trustees as part of the steering council that we believe will be required as part of the strategic planning effort. And so I also wanted to update you on the elections. We have reached out to the executive office requesting them to provide us a timeline. They have not been able to give us a definitive timeline on going to be held. They're in the process of selecting a vendor to actually conduct the election electronically. And so once that is completed, they've committed to providing us with that schedule as quickly as possible. COVID incidents at LACERA have, just like the current trends, have been going down. We do plan on returning to the office after March Madness sometime in April. And so we're in the process of reevaluating once again our return to office protocols and timelines. And we're in the process also of testing the testing protocols that we have in place at this particular point in time, just to make sure that we're up to speed and we're prepared for the reopening of LACERA and welcoming back our members. I also wanted to alert you to the fact that our IT team is in the process of upgrading our tenant servers. That is going to require a change in the reconfiguration of our equipment, our computers, our laptops, and any other electronic devices that have been issued through LACERA. It will also require them to contact each of the trustees. There's going to be some maintenance that will be required and some upgrades that will be required of you and some steps that you will need to take in order to make sure that you are also up to speed. I have Sumi and Kathy available to answer any questions if you have any questions about that, but they should be sending a communication to each of the trustees sometime today or tomorrow at the latest, and then schedule a walkthrough with each of you to make sure that that you don't have any disruption in the service that we're providing. The other item, of course, is the issues that are surrounding the conflict in between Russia and the Ukraine. The investment team continues to monitor the situation in the Ukraine to determine the impacts on our investment portfolio. Mr. Grable intends on providing a full report to the Board of Investments next week on the protocols established to address these types of events. Mr. Grable and his team have identified less than 184 million LACERA assets directly invested in Russia. This is approximately 25 basis points of our $74 billion portfolio. In speaking with Mr. Grable, he will be including some slides in his CIO report that will address a lot of these issues. And he will make sure that he sends out, we'll make sure that each of you will receive the report. I believe he's going to either mail it out today or tomorrow at the latest. And so he will also be prepared to answer any questions as part of the BOI meeting next week. And so that is my report. Be more than happy to stand for questions. And I know that Mr. Grable is available if you do have questions, but I just want to make sure that in terms of the Ukrainian situation, that the Board of Investments is responsible for overseeing that. I don't really want to have a really deep discussion about that at this point in time. I don't think it'd be appropriate for us to front run any discussions that Mr. Gray will need to have with the Board of Investments. So with that, we'd be more than happy to stand for questions.
And Chair Pryor, Mr. Santos has his hands raised.
May I please,
Go ahead,
the
Mr.
chair?
Santos. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Kryman. Thank you very much for your report. Just to clarify, and forgive me if this offend anybody, but 20 basis points is less than 1%, less than 0.5%. So just to put it in perspective, because sometimes when you hear basis points, could be misleading, but it's very small amount. Anyway, the other issue that I wanted to raise today is that I appreciate your report in your CEO report, Mr. Kryman, regarding recruitment. I just, look, I understand clearly that every single vacant position is very important for the organization. But one thing that I would like to highlight here is that, remember, the Board of Investments makes the money. The Board of Retirement pretty much decides how the money is going to be spent. So if as a consequence of us not being able to fill those positions expeditiously, it could be a potential opportunity loss in the billions of dollars. That's my view. That's my opinion. So again, I get it. Well, every single position in this organization is critical, but I just wanted to highlight that to everyone that it is critical that we get those positions up and running because of the potential losses. Thank you very much.
I can say that we have prioritized the investment positions. We've had talks with Mr. Grable, and we do have a hiring plan in place. And so now it's on us to execute on that plan. And so we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we fill those critical positions.
I get it. Thank you, Mr. Kryman, for that. The issue that I'm having is that when I look at the website, maybe I'm not looking at the right way, but none of these positions have been posted. And we have, several of those positions have been vacant for, I believe, longer than 6 months, like in particular, the real estate principal investment officer. That's very key. We already, as a consequence of the failures by the prior consultant, real estate consultant, and the way that that portfolio was being run, we lost approximately $2 billion already in the real estate portfolio. We do not want to compound those losses by us not being able to fill those critical positions so the investment staff and fully implement what the Board of Investments and Mr. Grable plan in terms of changing the position of the real estate portfolio to make it more profitable.
We will, at the Board of Investment meeting next week, we'll provide more details about the timing of those particular positions and when they're going to get posted, and kind of walk you through it very quickly.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll provide you with a supplemental report specifically for the investment office hirings.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is the issue for investment officers, the financial services industry in general, in hiring the same as, say, hospitality or other industries where it's faced with a lot of retirements and then different types of demands and requirements for the younger workers? Or is some other resource issue on our side that seems like this has been our position on staffing for a very long time.
So you broke up quite a bit there, but let me see
I'm
if
sorry.
I can. That's okay. I believe that the issues in terms of hiring on you're talking about the investment positions, correct?
Yes.
So we had, I guess, the issues that we've had have been, some of the issues have been internal in terms of how we're going to approach the hiring process. We had some setbacks because of the understandings that we had in terms of what we had done in the past and whether or not it was still appropriate to do it in that manner. We resolved that particular issue, and so we're moving forward and providing exams that are special to the investment side of the shop. So the way we were looking at it is that we have a general exam or a position description for the investment side, and we were not fully convinced at one particular point in time that we could do specialized recruitments. And so we've resolved that issue. We can do specialized recruitments, which is what we're doing now. We've been working with John, Mr. Grable, and his team to provide us with the job descriptions. They provided us with all the information. We had a discussion on whether or not we were going to use the executive recruitment services or we were going to use internal resources. We've determined that internal resources for specific levels is more appropriate because we felt that we didn't believe that we should have to pay a recruiter for any individual that supplies a resume, for example, and we bring them on board, that we would have to pay for the recruiter. So there are certain positions that we're going to use internal resources. We've had a tremendous amount of difficulty getting through exams because of the staffing issues. The pandemic set us back as well. We felt, or at least I made the determination, that I needed more folks in the member services area because we hadn't hired a class for nearly 2 years, and so that set us back as well. We finally got them onboarded, and Mr. Lugo actually probably should talk a little bit about the impacts that our call center is experiencing at this point in time because of the lack of people and staff that we have. Our calls have increased by nearly 60%. Our wait times are really expanding, and so we've resolved that particular issue. And so it's not that investments wasn't a priority. There were a lot of things that happened over the last 6 months as well in investments. We had individuals that took jobs in other areas. They left for retirement reasons. And so it just kind of happened all at once. But that being said, there's no excuse for us not to have been more nimble and more flexible in terms of trying to recruit the staff that John needs in order to execute on the Board of Investments strategy in terms of reconfiguring the investment unit. So John expresses the
kind of issues.
Say that again?
I said, so next year we should be in a much better position.
Yes, with all of our hiring actually. So we have a recruitment service that we're going to use for the CFO, for example. The Chief Technology Officer has been delayed. There's a lot of high-level positions that we need. There's John's positions, which are at the top of the food chain, so to speak. Mr. Rice is hiring a couple of attorneys that he needs on his side. He also has some critical positions that he needs to hire on. The other issue, also, quite frankly, the difficulty that we've had with the county, for example, in terms of acquiring the positions that we needed at the salary levels that we wanted, kind of delayed things, because before I got here, there was a delay in the hiring of a lot of critical positions, especially in the IT area. And so the IT area is also another area that we need to bolster. And so we made the decision that we're going to hire on these positions at the salary levels that we have available at this point, because we can't wait any longer. And so there's just kind of The critical path, I think, used to run through the IT section. We got a really good head start on making sure that we're doing a lot better on the IT side. Now the critical path seems to be in the human resources side. And so I know that Carly has provided us with a lot of things to think about. She's asking for additional resources as part of this budget that will be coming before you all. And so we're hopeful that next year, but at this time that we'll be, I don't want to say fully staffed, but we'll be nearly fully staffed at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chair Pryor, did you want to hear a little bit about our challenges on the call center? And I know that some trustees have been receiving some calls about delays and so on and so forth. So
yeah, absolutely. I thought that was it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Those.
Yep, I can further expand. Thank you, Santos. And again, good morning, Chair Pryor and trustees. And just to also reiterate what Santos was saying as it relates to our HR recruitment process, we do have an audit going on right now on our recruitment processes. And we have had a deep dive in terms of our civil service process and opportunities for us to be a little bit nimble within that process as well. So I fully expect us in the next, not only year, but in the next several months to be in a lot better standing to where we are today. But to go to the, just expanding on the member operations update, and I want to preface this by saying most of this information is highlighted within the CEO report, specifically on the member services metrics. So some of the drivers, we had a significant call spike in January. On average, our call center, our member service call center averages about 13 to 14,000 calls within our member service line. January, they saw 22,000 calls. February, we just got that data. Today, we saw about 18,000 calls, so a little bit less. So that's a 60% increase. And that also points to the fact that we haven't been fully staffed, to Santos's comments in terms of prioritizing member services over the last couple of years. We just onboarded two retirement benefit specialist classes in the last 2 months, where 15 of those individuals will migrate to the member service team and 9 will migrate to benefits. But between the spiking calls, as well as the staffing within our member services, that's where we're seeing this uptick as it relates to our wait time. So I know some of you as trustees have seen inquiries regarding the wait times as highlighted within the metrics. So we hope as our teams are onboarded, and there is a 10-month training period for our RBS class, although they're productive sooner than that, they're really not truly on the floor independently until after 10 months. And that's something that we can't overlay with temp hires, obviously, due to the nature of most of these calls being counseling, retirement counseling, estimates, process, discussing, specific plan options. So, we're really careful in terms of, the readiness of our staff as it relates to answering those calls. We do have, as I stated, some of the solutions to hopefully, as we go through the next few months, to level set some of the, the wait time is the RBS class. As they go through training, there is going to be opportunities for them to assist in taking calls. JJ, I know, can elaborate on that. We also we're examining our workforce cycle. We know that we normally have attrition rates, promotions, shrinkage within our call center. So we need to look at how we better forecast some of those periods of staffing shortages. And I know we can't overhire as part of our civil service rules, but I think there's some creative things that we can do there in terms of our workforce cycle. And then lastly, we talked about this a little bit last October in the board offsite, but looking at other opportunities within our website and our portal to really elevate the amount of education that we can provide and the interactive education we could provide to members when they do experience high wait times. Some of the things we can do on our website and portal to further educate some of these common topics that they're calling in for, whether it be Medicare, and Cassandra will talk a little bit about this because RHC is experiencing the same workload increases as member services. So those are a few things. Just wanted to, again, expand on some of those areas, and we do anticipate to get a handle on this as we onboard and train up our staff.
I have a question from Ms. Gray. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Mr. Lugo, with respect to having something on our website to assist our members in perhaps answering their questions so that they don't have to call in. I recently had to call my credit union, and it's through, excuse me, LAPD. And what they do is, while you're on hold, they give you, bullet pointed information with respect to whatever in terms of banking. If we could do that instead of having music or silence, just have information, you might get the members may get answers right there from the information we give them. Like, for instance, this is a big question that I keep getting from our members. And what is the COLA going to be? Or I heard that the COLA was going to be 6.5%. And it's, important to let them know that with Social Security, our COLA depends on your plan. If you're in Plan A, 3%, Plan B through D, 2%. Something like that. You'll get a lot of hangups after that. So that's my suggestion.
Oh, thank you, Trustee Gray. I think that's a great suggestion. I think everything's on the table in terms of us reimagining our member services as it relates to some of those options. I think another option that's popular among systems and just in general in the financial industry is, an AI chatbot, an artificial intelligence chatbot, where you go onto the website and they literally can guide you through some of that information that we go over via phone, but we need a strong knowledge management system on the back end to support that. So those are all options that are on the table for us as we go through strategic planning and some of the opportunities within member services.
Mr. Popovich has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let Ms. Gray know that we do some of that messaging. For example, we've added 2 new options on our welcome message, one for COLA and one for Part B reimbursement, to help answer some of the common questions that people have. Also, we've increased on a regular basis, we've increased our partnership with retiree healthcare. A lot of the calls that we do get right now are retiree healthcare related, pretty much for the Part B. And so just yesterday, I had a meeting with Alan and Cassandra, and we've provided some information today for our call center staff and member services to answer a bit more of the questions that we're seeing members have. What that does is that helps not having to transfer calls to retiree healthcare, which eventually, if they can't answer quick enough, they just come back and create more calls, and it's just a feedback loop. So we try and partner to do that as well. As Mr. Lugo said, if we, as we go forward with our strategic planning, really consider some AI intelligence and that can help us both, not only just on the website, but can also answer questions when people call in. You can actually run it through basic questions when people call in and give them basic answers, as long as you have a very good knowledge base behind the scenes. So we are looking at every opportunity we can. We also have a couple of initiatives to look at why people are calling us. This is something we've always done, but that's led to some upcoming changes we hope to see in terms of processing things behind the scenes and how we process death benefits and respond to some inquiries in that area. And that's a continual process that we do, trying to figure out how do we reduce the number of calls incoming and provide increased, better services for our members. Thank you.
And I see no more requests to speak. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the issue. And next we have disability retirement applications on consent calendar. Excuse me. So applications on consent calendar on page 1, we've got 629 inclusive through 641. We did have one case pulled, and that was 639D, Robert Gillis. Otherwise, those are the cases on the table.
I move page 1 and 2.
Yep, we got page 1. Page 2 is 642 through 654, nothing pulled. We have page 1 and 2 is the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Robbins. And do I have a roll call?
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta, Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. We're on to page 3, which is 1451B, McConnell through 1457B, Jonathan Flagler. Do we have a, I'll make the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Robbins. Please call the roll.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta. Okay, Mr. Bernstein,
Aye.
Chair Pryor.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
And we have on page 4 of 7, 2340 Charlie C through 2347C. Baldwin, Cynthia Baldwin through Maria Mejia. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion. We have a motion, Mr. Santos, second by Ms. Gray.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta, Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you, and apologies. I should have just done all 3 pages there. I'm getting stuck in some old ways there. So next motion would be 2348C through 2358C. That's inclusive page 5. I'm sorry, page 5 and 6 of 7. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gray,
Second.
second by Mr. Santos.
Okay, my apologies for not catching that. Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. And my paper copy is missing page 7. Is that Patrick Jordan and 5206 and 5193B?
Actually, page 7 is general members, non-service connected disability, which include application numbers 4412 to 4413.
Okay, I got it on my electronic copy. Thank you. So we have non-service connected disability on the consent calendar, 4412 and 4413. We do need a motion.
Move approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Santos, second by Ms. Gray.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we have on the consent calendar, item A through D, 4 items. I have no notes that anything has been pulled. Do we have anybody that wants to pull any of the consent items?
I'll make a motion A through D.
We have a motion A through D. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bernstein on consent items A through D. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And that brings us to non-consent items. First item is non-consent item A. And this is a recommendation by Chief Counsel Stephen Rice that under AB 361 and Government Code Section 54953E3 of the Brown Act, the Board of Retirement consider whether to find the governor's COVID-19 state of emergency and other agencies still recommend social distancing, that each board and its committees shall hold teleconference meetings for the next 30 days, subject to the continuation of the state of emergency. We have a memo dated February 22nd. That's attached here. That's attached.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And we have a second by Mr. Gray. Mr. Rice, is there anything you'd like to add to the memo?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pryor, and good morning, trustees. We pushed this onto the non-consent calendar this month simply to give you a brief update on the state of emergency, because our ability to hold teleconference meetings in the way we've been doing for the past 2 years is dependent on existence of the state of emergency. As you're probably all aware from the news, the governor has been rapidly scaling back parts of the state of emergency, and the local agencies have also been scaling back their mask mandates and other safety measures related to the emergency as the scope of the COVID seems to be winding down or getting less severe in the perception of many. The governor has no current plans to terminate the state of emergency. However, he is facing political pressure from the legislature and from the other constituencies to terminate the measure, and he is actively considering it. There are hearings that will take place in the state Senate in mid-March related to termination of the state of emergency, and there are measures in both houses of the legislature to do just that by their own action. The situation is very fluid. I think we can reasonably expect if the state of COVID continues as it has over the past couple of months, that the governor will likely terminate the state of emergency in the next couple of months. I think he'll give at least 30 days notice before he does that. We have been in touch with Joe Ackler, and he is reporting regularly to Mr. Liu and me about what is going on in Sacramento, the governor's office, as well as the legislature. We want to make you aware of this because once that state of emergency is lifted, we will be back into a pre-COVID in-person meeting scenario with the ability to hold teleconference meetings under the older, more onerous rules. The executive office will be making a presentation to the joint boards at the March 23rd meeting to explain the protocols and changes to the boardroom that will be made to ensure safety once the both boards return to the boardroom. Happy to answer any questions about this.
Are there any questions? Mr. Harris, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Rice, is there any move by any organization to modify the onerous rules that we will fall back under once the state of emergency is lifted, so that we could, in fact, incorporate some type of virtual meeting format?
Yes, there is at least one bill, AB 1944, that's pending in the Assembly that would eliminate one of the most onerous aspects of the old rules, which is the requirement that every teleconference location be publicly identified and that each location be open to the public. That would be a major change that would allow you to have telephone meetings in your homes without having to disclose your home addresses. That would be a big change in the historical view of open meetings. So I don't know what the prospect of that meeting is, but it's very early in the session, so it's too early to predict. But yes, there is some effort being made to continue the relaxation of those rules, even post termination of the emergency.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Rice. Two more non-consent items. First is
Mr. Pryor, I will go ahead and take a vote on non-consent
we
items.
haven't voted yet. Sorry.
No problem. Ms. Ginsburg?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Keo?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Ms. Sabanta?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein? Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
thank you. That brings us to item B, the recommendation by Ms. Smith, Retiree Healthcare Director, that the board approve fiscal year 2022-23 rate renewals, and that the administrative $8 per month per plan. And enclosed, you have a memo dated February 23rd. Do we have a motion?
Before a motion, I'd like to have a staff presentation, and I have questions regarding the $8 fee.
We can take a motion and a second at any point. Do we have a motion? Okay, we'll go ahead and take the staff presentation, and we'll take the motion afterwards.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here and happy to present that we have had another great renewal for our next fiscal year of 22-23. We concluded with a final negotiated increase of 1% overall for the entire program. That's a $16.6 million annual premium cost savings based off of the initial or the preliminary rates that the carriers initially came up with. I will go over the overall by plan. If you would like me to go into greater detail, let me know. But for the Anthem plans, we had an overall increase of 0.1%. For Cigna, there was a rate pass, so that stays the same. For Cigna Dental Vision, there was actually a decrease of 3.7%. Kaiser had a decrease of 1.6%. Our out-of-state Kaiser plans had an increase of 0.8%. Scan was another rate pass, so no change there. And then our United Healthcare had an increase of 1.4% overall. We're recommending remaining with the $8 for the next fiscal year. Although we've estimated that we've overpassed that $8, the county requested additional time to review the request to increase the admin fee. We are collaboratively working with them to make sure that for our next fiscal year, we will be able to increase the fee to adjust and address the overhead and our salaries and all, because that admin fee actually pays for the retiree healthcare salaries. We also have indicated to the county that we believe that we have enough surplus that will carry us through for the next year, but we will also be communicating with them should we find that there was additional shortfalls that we cannot address. During the IBL, I mentioned that I was going to address the volume, workload volume with retiree healthcare, as well as our call center, which you kind of touched bases on earlier. We too, in our call center, have seen increase of over 50%. So we're like 100% over the amount of calls that we were getting for 2020 in the 2021 plan year. And we continue to see an increase. For our insurance enrollments, there's been an increase of almost 303%. Some of those are a result of, with retiree healthcare being a small division, it takes us all to jump in and help answer the calls to try to address our members' questions. So then the enrollment process kind of suffers as well. We are looking at ways and know that we can do better. We've put in things that we believe will maybe help alleviate some of the calls. One of them was for our Part B process. Before, we would send a confirmation out when we received the verification, but when staff processed it, there was no verification going out. We now have a confirmation that actually goes out to the member to let them know that we've reviewed it and it's been processed. They'll see it on their next check. So they're getting that confirmation as well. However, what we're seeing is when members are calling, when they send in their verification, they're immediately picking up the phone to call us to see if we've gotten it. And that's a lot of the calls that we're getting. They want to know if they've gotten it, how long will it take to process? And of course, we can't go back and go through thousands of verification. They're processed on a first come, first served basis. So our way of informing these members is to send out the confirmation letters to let them know, one, we received it, and now two, we haven't processed it. That is it. Sean, I know you had a question on the admin fee.
Yes, thank you. So we had originally discussed a $10 per member admin fee. And then there was going to be ongoing discussions with the county regarding that. And now we're seeing a recommendation of an $8 admin fee. The narrative in the report says the administrative fee, although we've projected the administrative fee to be higher than $8 per member per month, we estimate that sufficient prior year surpluses can cover the administrative plan costs for the upcoming fiscal year. So the bottom line is we're under budgeting how much we need with the going into surpluses on that. My question is, did the county object to the $10 fee versus the $8 fee? And why then are we as an organization taking a risk of underestimating what is actually needed on this fee? I just want to hear some justification. It sounds to me like the county simply didn't want to properly fund this because we have surpluses, and surpluses in my mind are for use of emergencies or if we need to dip into them, not planned ahead. So if I can hear some comments from staff on that.
So I will, I'll chime in here. I wouldn't characterize that the county was not in favor of increasing the fee. It really was a function of us providing them information. They had additional questions. We were in the process of trying to provide them with the additional information, and quite frankly, we were not able to provide them with the complete details that they were asking for. I made the decision to move forward because I didn't want to delay the process, and we needed to really publish the renewal rates and get to the point where we can move forward in terms of making sure that our members are provided with the right renewal rate information. And so we have a specific deadline that Cassandra mentioned to me. And so I decided that let's just go ahead and use our surplus that we have available to us in order to pay for the ongoing costs for this fiscal year, and then work with the county over the next couple of months or so to right size the fee.
Who's the decision maker of the fee? Is this the responsibility of the retirement board?
It is the retirement board recommends, but I believe that the fee is really in the hands of the county, quite frankly. They're the program sponsor. We administer it based on their direction. So
okay, but I understand that the funding source, but my understanding is that we are responsible for the oversight of this. So we as a board would be adopting something that we know to be underfunding. Based upon a memo that's in front of me, we've projected the administrative fee to be higher than $8 per month. So my question is, who is ultimately responsible for that? Because I believe that it's this board. And I believe that this board would be responsible if we have to underfund this, the fees associated. Not only that, but we also know that we're understaffed in retiree healthcare, and we have a lot of stuff that we have to work at. So we want to have proper budgeting with it. But I mean, there's a clear answer to that. I understand that the county is funding it and we are managing the retirement system, but I believe from our 1982 agreement that we are administratively responsible for this. So it would be our decision. So the question is, if this board adopted a $10 per member fee, is that something that can be overridden by any other body other than outside of a court of law?
Well,
and maybe that's a question for Mr. Rice.
Mr. Rice?
Yes, the 82 agreement provides that that LACERA administers the program and provides that the county will fund the program in accordance with the terms of the agreement, which provides that the cost ratios and benefit ratios between active and retired programs will not be changed to the detriment of retirees. As those of you who have seen the 82 agreement know, it's a very short agreement. It doesn't get into the nuts and bolts, but LACERA is responsible at a high level. LACERA is responsible to administer, and the county is responsible to fund the program consistent with maintaining it as required by the agreement. So the county should fund the program as we reasonably are able to demonstrate is necessary to maintain the program properly in accordance with the agreement.
Okay. So ultimately the responsibility of adopting this is on this board. And I can't see how I cannot support when we have a memo that's essentially saying that we are projecting this to be we are under budgeting ourselves on this. And we're doing it, I understand, for the purposes of our relationship with the board with the CEO's office and the County of Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, regardless of us being able to provide the clarification information that they want, I don't want to adopt something for a year that ultimately underfunds us as a board. I think that would be irresponsible for us to do. I would have preferred the separate, which would be to fund it at $10, justify this board's actions with information provided to the county. And if it turns out that the following year that we had over budgeted it, then we can adjust as necessary if we wanted to reduce it or not. That's the direction that I'm going with this, but I do know I see a number of hands up, and I'll open it up I'll pass it on for discussion, but I believe that a $10 per member fee would be appropriate. And just as a clarification, this fee is covered on behalf of the county for us for managing this, and is not out of pocket for the members. So we're not putting this burden on the members. So I will pass it on. I'll allow Mr. Pryor to.
Sure, let's start with Ms. Guglielmo and see if we can figure this out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Keogh and members of the board, hopefully I'm going to try to explain the process a little bit just so that you have some level of comfort in that $8 fee. So that fee was increased from $5 to $8 in 2016. At that time, it was intended to cover, I believe, a 5 to 8 year period of time with growth. So just to be clear, if we were to fully fund all of the costs of RHC based on the budgeted staffing levels, the cost would exceed. The cost would exceed the $8. However, we actually have staffing vacancies, and we don't anticipate being able to necessarily fill those right away. So we've had several years where we have overcollected. We have 5 years or so where our expenditures have been under that $8. We're just now at the threshold where it would exceed Typically, when you're talking about these kinds of fees, you can absorb a level where it exceeds your actual annual cost because of savings that you've achieved in the prior years. And so part of our negotiations and discussions with the county will be, how often should we address these fees? There's some ease to LACERA by just doing it every several years to allow some flexibility and growth. I think the county would probably prefer that that be adjusted annually based on our actual expenses. There are pros and cons to both approaches, but Mr. Kehoe, I do want to communicate that while we are at full funding, we will exceed that $8, and that could happen in the next year. We've been over collecting for a number of years. So we don't anticipate there being any limitations on RHC's ability to fully perform their required duties for our members. So if that gives you any sense of security in our ability to commit our fiduciary responsibilities or fulfill our fiduciary responsibilities.
Thank you. And let me go to Mr. Santos, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Lugo. We might have another question come up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, good.
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Kehoe. It is dangerous to underfund any program that we have. With regards to Ms. Guglielmo, I hope I pronounced that. I'm sure it's with the Latino accent, but anyway, you really crystallize the issue for me, quite frankly. Number one, if I understood you correctly, you said that as long as we continue to understaff the program, that we're not going to hit the $10 mark. But that is dangerous in my view, because our goal should be to fully staff every single program. We just went over that with regards to the voter investment. So, Mr. Kehoe, I'd be happy to support your motion for the $10 fee if you are ready to make such motion. Thank you.
And Mr. Lugo, let's. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get Mr. Moore in. Like I said, if any questions come up, it's better we close.
Okay, I'm going to try to use my phone so I don't fade out or anything. I would support.
Turning down anything else we have, because we're getting feedback.
Okay, well, I'll support the motion also if Mr. Sean makes one.
I'll make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation with a modification to a $10 fee.
Thank you.
I would second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Kehoe, a second by Ms. Gray. Let me go to Mr. Lugo.
Yes, Chair Pryor, I just wanted to expand on what Ms. Guglielmo stated. When we looked at our conversations with the county, it was more so also looking at our internal processes and specifically related to the surplus fees accumulated. And we felt comfortable with that surplus that we, at full staffing, that we would be able to meet our needs this upcoming year while we work through right-sizing the actual fee, the administrative fee. So I think the surplus is really what we're, and from our perspective, is the surplus is used to either not raise fees for the county or address any shortfalls accordingly. So that's why we looked at locking in on the $8 per month fee, with the notion that we know we were going to go back and look at a rate increase once we actually go through our due diligence. I would like Cassandra to expand on, timeline with the, if we don't secure a fee, an admin fee, what that effect would have in terms of our retiree membership.
Yes, thank you, Louis. One thing I want to caution is because it's imperative that we get this passed, which was why we looked at and determined that the $8 would suffice for the 1 year, is because we need to get this finalized so we can go to print and get the stuff out in time to the members, because we do have a federal deadline since we are receiving federal funds. And also it will impact our OPEB valuation, which Milliman is waiting for the approved amounts as well, so they can give us the most current OPEB valuation numbers.
Mr. Rice, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that in voting on the motion and considering the issue generally, I think the key consideration is what information does the board have before it to determine the fee that should be approved by this board and forwarded over by this action. If staff is I guess I would go no further beyond saying that you would need to evaluate and get an answer from staff as to what amount is necessary under the agreement to perform the administrative tasks that LACERA performs, whether that's $8 or $10 or somewhere in the middle. It's not clear from the discussion that question has been answered specifically. There's some indication that $8 would be under budget, but I don't know if there's an answer to the question of what the amount is to be on budget. And I think that's the critical question from a legal point of view in performing the board's obligations under the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
I won't belabor the point any more than just to say, if I could vote, I would vote against the motion. I think all the reasons stated by staff and Ms. Smith adequately explain why, although it'd be nice to go to $10 and we should go to $10 eventually and probably will. Now is not the time to do that. And I think it's incumbent upon us to demonstrate to the county that we are good partners with them in this program. So if I could vote, I would vote against this motion.
Back to Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you. So this is in response to Mr. Rice's comments. So as stated, I'll restate the comments that our memo that's provided to us as a decision-making body is that they have projected the administrative fee to be higher than $8 per member. So the administrative fee is not sufficient enough to cover our budgeted amount. And we have previously received a memo that $10 did cover that. And that is what I am basing the motion on. And I would also like to point out that if we have a surplus is separate than the per member fee issue. So if we have a surplus, then perhaps the recommendation should be to refund the county that surplus, keep whatever we believe is sufficient to deal with any type of in-house emergencies for budgeting. But we should be properly budgeting our administrative fees per member. And we've had that problem before in the past, and that is why we went from $5 to $8. So in order to avoid that, and in order to avoid future big jumps that are unanticipated, we should properly budget the per member fee, which would be $10 per member based on all the information I provided. Like I said, if we have a surplus issue, then perhaps we should identify, I have no idea how large the surplus is because that wasn't provided to us. But if we have a surplus, perhaps we should look at that and provide that back to the county if that's something appropriate to do. And I'm sure that that's something that could be discussed with the county. I don't think that the properly budgeting a per member fee should delay the process. I think we provide that information to the county and explain why that decision was made. And of course, they're certainly entitled to attend our meetings too and provide comments. But ultimately, we have two separate issues. We have a proper budgeting per member, and we have the potential of surplus due to over budgeting or not hiring positions. So I think we handle these separately, and I retain the motion. I appreciate the second and the support from my fellow trustees.
Copy that. The motion's been retained. Mr. Kryman.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate. I do agree with Mr. Kehoe, Trustee Kehoe, that fully funding our administrative costs is of paramount importance and the right way to go. In the past, when at least from my read and my evaluation of the situation, the fee has not been, the process has not been formalized, quite frankly. And that's what we're struggling with now with the county in terms of they have new people on their side, we have new people on our side. The way we account for the surplus and how it gets distributed. I know that in the past we used to have premium holidays that were funded from this pot of money, as well as other pot of money. The monies are commingled right now with the premium payments and the administrative fees going into one account. And so some of the things that we're talking about, we're trying to figure out is how do we segregate the admin fee with the premium fees, because it hasn't been done that way in the past. And so what we're asking for, and the surplus funds, quite frankly, they are used or intended to be used for these type of situations. And so the funding is there. We're not saying that we're shortchanging ourselves. We are going to fully fund the retiree healthcare. We're going to provide the service that we need. We're going to fully fund or hire all of the staff that is on the books in terms of all your ordinance positions that have been approved by this board as well as the county. And so we're not intending on seeing a service decline as a result of this funding scenario that we're recommending. My preference as the CEO of LACERA is that you provide us the time to work with the county on how we account for the surplus, how we account for the premium payments, how we segregate that. We don't really have a formalized process in place. In the past, it had been based on, decisions had been based on the relationship building that Kathy Magida had done a wonderful job of doing. Kathy, I think, is the last person standing, quite frankly, on both sides. And we need to formalize this process with the county, and that's what we're asking for. We think that this particular arrangement will give us the opportunity to work with the county to make sure that we're accounting for things properly, that we're fully staffing things up. They've asked us for a lot of information. We provided them with all of the information, with the exception of some, I believe, estimated actuals that we're having difficulty trying to get to them. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that the county has declined the $10 fee. Quite frankly, we have to provide them with the additional information that they're asking for. And so I strongly recommend that you move forward with the staff's recommendation at the $8 and use dip into the surplus. That would be our preference as a administration, and the individual responsible for delivering on the for our members in terms of our retiree health care. Can
I make a point of order, Mr. Pryor? Yeah, so just a point of order. The motion is a two-part motion. It's number one, to approve the renewal proposal, and number two, to approve the $10 fee. So regardless of the fee issue, item one would still stand. So I'm just pointing out that you still have the ability to move forward with the adopted mandatory contractual changes by the carrier and still have the ability to negotiate with the county regarding explaining to them the $10. So that's just a point of order.
Well, that's not my understanding, at least the conversations I had with Cassandra and with Kathy, that both the admin fee and the premium payments are joined.
Yes.
So you can't move it forward the way you're suggesting. Trustee Kehoe and Cassandra can elaborate for me.
The admin fee is added on top of the premium, and that's how we collect that money. So some of the $8 or the $10 in this case, if it was increased to $10, is paid by the member. lot of it is paid by the county because of members having 25 years of service. So for example, if the premium is $600, we have an $8 fee, it'll be $608. And that's how we arrive at it. So this decision here would delay our ability to finalize the rates until the admin fee issue gets resolved.
Right, and that's the that was a scenario that was provided to me when we made the decision to go ahead and use the surplus funds to pay for any additional costs for administering the program.
Let me catch Mr. Robbins, who's in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear exactly what Mr. Kehoe is saying, and I don't disagree with a whole lot of what Sean said. I also hear what Mr. Kryman is saying, and unfortunately, I think we've kind of been our own worst enemy on this issue to some degree because we haven't done our homework, at least to the satisfaction of the current people over at the county. Now, I don't believe for a New York second that the County of Los Angeles is not playing hardball, because I think they are. I think they are not being as good a partner as they could. In the past, we raised the rates. Nobody over there said much, but I think they're kind of giggling over $2, and I don't really fully understand it. They don't have to do that. We do have excess money. We could take it out of that. That would probably make the county unhappy too. But I think Mr. Kryman's recommendation that one more time, and I'll just refer to it as we turn the cheek one more time and try to be good partners with the plan sponsor, might be the best way to go politically, although it frustrates and it angers me some that we know that $8 is not enough, especially given all of the additional work that's been brought forth by all of the new rules and regulations and so on and so forth. But we can't delay the approval of the premiums, and as Cassandra just stated, it's a package deal. So I'm probably not going to support the motion to just make it 10 and try to show a little good faith to the plan sponsor. But I have real mixed emotions about this. I don't think the county is doing anything other than just being difficult. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sorry, Ms. Gray.
I'm a little concerned because I do support Sean's motion. I seconded it. And we hadn't had a full discussion. I think the one thing that resonates throughout the subsequent comments was that although it's difficult with the $8 administrative fee, we really need to consider the political aspect of how we go about raising this fee. And Mr. Robbins made an important point that we hadn't really done our homework. Mr. Kryman makes an even bigger point, excuse me, because he is our CEO. And we're not following blindly, Mr. Kryman, but we do rely on your suggestion with respect to how we go about this. And I'm hearing that you want to do more before we jump up and down and say, we want a $10 administrative fee. We have to more or less wait, do our homework, and follow the best political route so that it doesn't affect not only our retiree health care, but it does trickle down to all of our other interactions with the county. Excuse my voice. So in light of that, I'm like Mr. Robbins, I have mixed emotions because I totally agree with Mr. Kehoe, but that is the message, but how we follow through on sending that message, I'm a little concerned about, and maybe now is not the time to ask for the $10. So Mr. Kehoe, I support you, but I think we need to consider the other subsequent comments. And with that, I will not withdraw my support right now, but I think that we need to consider that. So I don't know exactly how to say this, but I think that we need to be careful.
All right, Mr. Kehoe, do we do this vote with $10 or are we going to change it?
I'm still in support of the $10 fee, and I just want to explain why that we shouldn't even be in this position right here. We've had plenty of opportunity to discuss with the county and get this stuff resolved. We're going back and forth. The fact that this board is being forced to vote on something that's underfunding. I understand we have a surplus. Once again, the surplus is separate than properly budgeting and funding the per member fee. That would have been a better recommendation, is simply to say, we will refund the county X amount of surplus, but we're going to properly budget the $10 fee. I suspect that staff did not think about that or discuss that. This is the first time that this board is sitting down and discussing it. Regardless, I can't support when I have a memo clearly stating that we're underfunding the per member fee. I understand we have a surplus, but I just can't, I can't get behind that. Essentially also because of issues that we have with negotiating with the county on this and ongoing issues with this. We can't simply every single time go, well, you know, we didn't get what we want from the county, so let's go ahead and adjust. The bottom line is we have to do the right thing as a board, and it's on the county to also do the right thing. So I keep it. I understand that it causes political difficulties for staff, but that's why we have staff.
All right, seeing debate on both sides of the issue has been satisfied. Let's go ahead and vote. We have approved fiscal 2022 to 23 rate renewal with an administrative fee, part 2 of an administrative fee of $10 per member per plan per month. And let's go ahead and call the question.
Ms. Ginsburg?
No.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Thank you, Vivian, for that. Yes.
Mr. Sanchez?
I do have a question about the process. If this doesn't pass, then we go back to the staff recommendation, correct?
We would need another motion, is the process.
To approve, got it. I'm gonna vote no.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
No.
Ms. Zapanta?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
The motion passes with 6 yeses and 3 nos.
Thank you.
Hey, give me.
That brings us up to non-consent item C, that the board approve per trustee travel policy. And this is Miss Vivian Gray's attendance at SACRS 2021. She exceeded the $2,000 pre-approval by $65.50.
I'll move the item.
I'll move the item. We have a second by?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. Got it. Second by Mr. Moore. And let's go ahead and call the roll.
Can I ask one question? Just I tried to make the motion. I'm supportive of it. And I think it's an indication that our travel policy is working. But if the president of the SACRS board is going $65 over on the limit, perhaps we need to review our limits. We're in an inflationary era. And I think it's a working system. And I want to commend that and not throw it away. But it just seems that maybe we need to increase our numbers and even consider including a COLA provision so that we don't have to have the president of SACRS asking for $65 to cover her reasonable travel.
There may be a way we can have an exclusion for board officers on particular organizations that may need a higher approval limit. And if Mr. Rice, we could just make a note of this and bring this to the travel committee when appropriate.
Yes, thank you, Chair Pryor and Trustee Bernstein. the travel policy and education policy will be coming to the JOG-C next Friday's meeting. And this issue, the way of resolving small excesses like this was also discussed at the JOG-C in December. So this issue has been flagged and will be before the committee for discussion next week.
And if I may, Chair Pryor, although both approaches are legitimate, I actually think carve-outs for special service is not the way to go. I think the policy is really well designed. Simply recognizing that inflation is bumping up some of the numbers would cover this without the risk of a perception that we're giving favors to some people, which we could avoid just by increasing the numbers.
Interesting.
Understood. Mr. Santos. Oh, you pulled your hand down. You still in?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, he's good. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and take the vote.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Yes.
Ms. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins. Mr. Robbins. Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Ms. Zapanta.
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion
All right,
passes
Marty.
unanimously. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for that, and motion passes. So let's go to, we have 4 reports. None are flagged for presentation or debate. And that brings us to items for staff review. Before we do that, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back to go to the order. Is that okay? We've done a pretty long stretch here, and I kind of need it. So, all right, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with good of the order. Oh, there we go.
Kelly, 148.
All right, so we're back, and we've completed non-consent items, reports, and items for staff review.
Yeah.
And
yes, we have one item.
And now we're at, I'm sorry?
Yes, we have one item for items for staff review, which is to, yes, a supplemental report was requested regarding the investment positions and hiring status, and it will be provided at the BOI meeting on March 9th.
Nominate Lucy Ricardo for president. Thank you. That brings us to good of the order.
Ms. Ginsburg.
To the group.
Ms. Gray.
Yes. Excuse me. I just wanted to say thank you to staff. Recently, I've had, a couple of interactions, and it's been great. I know that we have our monthly All-Stars, but a lot of times we forget people, especially that we interact with, our trustees interact with staff. So I'd just like to give a great thank you to JJ. I had received a stack of member complaints, and I didn't know what to do with them. And so I sent them to JJ, and they're numerous, and he followed through on a lot of it. He's sorting through it because we couldn't figure out heads or tails of what they were saying. But I just want to tell you, JJ, you always do the All-Stars, but you're an All-Star yourself. And I really, really appreciate the way you handle things. You get on it right away. So thank you so much. I'd also like to thank Alex Yin, because he's always there. The other night, I called the helpline, and it was late. It was about 8 something. And Koki answered, and he had to get Alex, and Alex called me back and was right there to help me find my cases on my iPad and walk me through it. And it's not like I couldn't figure out the iPad. It's just that Board Vantage just made things disappear. I don't know why. So Alex, I want to thank you. You're always there for us IT wise. If you can't fix it, you usually find somebody to fix it for us. Thank you. And Bonnie and Linda, all the time for answering our very reasonable questions and our wild and crazy requests. So I just want to thank staff and all the work that you do. I know it's early in the year, but your work starts out from last year and folds right on over to this year, including stuff that we bring up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Yes, thank you. I did Ms. Gray's comments regarding the compliments to the staff. I've been reporting the devastation that COVID-19 has had in my family. And so now it looks like we all got it now, because I had it right after our last Board of Retirement meeting. I got infected. And thank God for the vaccination. I went through it with no problem. But it is here to stay. Seems that way. So we just have to figure out how we deal with this new normal and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Bonnie. Again, wanted to thank staff. I haven't had the opportunity to interact with everyone because I was recently appointed and we're not seeing each other in person, but what I would like to do, and I will follow up, is request some time before the other trustees as well too, because I'd really like to get to know everybody one-on-one and hopefully in person one of these days. The last thing, I just wanted to wish everybody, good energy and success, especially parents with young children, because these are challenging times. We're all living it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I'll pass.
Mr. Robbins.
I would, I'd like to ditto everything Vivian said. From the staff that we rely on every day, and I too have problems with this iPad, and Alex is on my speed dial because I either can't get into it or I can't find what I'm looking for, and it's a pretty regular problem that I have with the iPad. But I have, like I said, Alex is on my speed dial, so he's usually able to fix what's not working. And I think sometimes maybe it's pilot error, and sometimes I think it's a damn iPad because I like iPad. But anyway, I got 4 of them. So, but I agree with everything you said, Vivian. Everybody have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Just to echo Ms. Gray's comments and Mr. Robbins and Herm's also, and everyone's. The staff does an incredible job, Sarah, and we never can recognize them enough. I agree. It's nice to see the All-Stars every month, but there's a whole bunch of people that every day are doing all-star work, and they all should be recognized for that. We all really appreciate it. This has been a really rough couple of years, and the way this organization has stepped up and adapted in a totally new environment is just remarkable. And I just want to extend my thanks to everyone on staff. Thanks.
Ms. Aponte?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein.
So I also had iPad problems, but the thanking of Alex, which is appropriate, confirms for me my impression that Bonnie works exclusively for me and is always available and immediate in her responsiveness and helpfulness. So I just want to acknowledge Bonnie and tell the rest of you to leave her alone because she's busy helping me. That's a light note. On a more somber note or serious note, I just want to extend my thoughts to all of us and all of our members who may have family in the Ukraine or ancestral roots in the Ukraine. My family comes from Belarus, which is frankly a worse place than the Ukraine currently in some ways. But I'm moved by the fighting and the passion of the Ukraine people. And again, my thoughts go out to all of our members who may have ties to that conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. Mr. Kehoe?
I think, yeah, I was going to say the same, that my prayers go out to all those, the innocents that are impacted by the devastation in Ukraine, and to the whole world, because these are tough times that we're all living in. So pray for peace as much as we can have.
Thank you, JJ.
Well, I want to thank Ms. Gray for those kind comments. Thank you very much. I echo the sentiments about Ukraine. A couple of years ago, I did Ancestry.com and trying to figure out where my roots are, because I really don't have a really good in-depth understanding of where my family comes from. But I do have a lot of ties many generations back in Ukraine, and then just what they're going through now, and how brave they are, and what they represent, which is what we believe in, freedom and democracy. My heart goes out to all of them, and wish them the best, and anybody who has any family there the best. So thank you very much.
Ms. Guglielmo.
Thank you. I don't want to, kind of overemphasize this, but I want to thank you for your acknowledgement of staff. I know we appreciate it. We do have staff here who have family in the Ukraine and are very concerned about them, as well as in the region, as well as our members. So we appreciate that support for our staff. And I want to, we mentioned in the CEO report that we'll be going forward with our tenant migration with all of you in that communication. So please understand that I'm asking for your patience in advance as we go through this. It might be somewhat painful, but we will do our best, and staff will do our best to make sure that we service you appropriately and confidently, and that we make LACERA a stronger and more secure information environment. So thank you.
Mr. Lugo?
Just again, the sentiments that have been shared, especially trustee acknowledgement and support of our staff, that truly gets the work done. So really appreciate the acknowledgements among our staff. And, as Mr. Trustee Harris stated, it's literally, we're going on the 2-year anniversary of working from home. So it's amazing to think that it's been 2 years since our normal day-to-day work has been disrupted, and the ability for our staff to adapt has been amazing to see as well. So thank you.
Mr. Rice?
Good morning. During the CEO's report, there was a discussion of LACERA's Russia holdings. During that discussion, there was an exchange in the Zoom chat that may not have been accessible to the public, but was part of the discussion and should be shared. Mr. Robbins asked the question about what is the nature of our Russia investments, and Mr. Grable responded that the holdings are primarily in public markets. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Santos-Kryman.
Thank you, Bonnie. I just wanted to express my appreciation to the trustees for their support. I also wanted to, I know that we had recognized some of our all-stars today, and I do want to mention that I wanted to mention by name 3 members of our IT staff that have family and friends in the Ukraine that come into the office every day despite their worries for their loved ones back home. And so I wanted to let Larissa Fradkin, Galina Storfman, and Uliana Chibosov let them know that we're here for you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. And please let us know if there's anything that we can do to assist you and your family back home. I know that the county has some services that are being provided for Ukrainian folks. And so I just want to make sure that I recognize them. I know their hearts are heavy at this particular point in time. And so I want to recognize them for all that they do for our members and for the organization. So thank you.
Chair Pryor.
Thank you. Thank you for all the kind words for staff and for those that have been affected or will be affected or have family involved in the Ukraine situation. And let's just hope that things go peacefully and quickly, and this whole nightmare is over before too long. I have nothing else. Just want to thank everybody. And I'm sorry, I did have one quick thank you. We've had, unfortunately, a couple of active duty deaths recently. And those usually, and these did require offsite meetings with the families. And as usual, your outreach staff did a phenomenal job, well-trained and responsive, and works excellent with our people and worked excellent with the families. And you just, you know, they do such an amazing job. And it is the hardest situation to go in and advise anybody. I've done it and it's horrible. And it's very hard to be able to work with people in those situations. And your staff does it so professionally and so well. And I just wanted to thank you for that, for your staff's professionalism and really just amazing ability to do those. So thank you again. With that, let's go to closed session. And we are start on our non-consent closed session reports.